Have you ever wondered when the first student protest at an American university took place? Our journey into the annals of American history unravels a tale of dissent and activism that starts much earlier than you might expect. The year was 1766, the setting, none other than the esteemed Harvard University. This prestigious institution, a beacon of knowledge and enlightenment, became the stage for what is known as the first recorded student protest in the United States. Dubbed the Great Butter Rebellion, it was a protest sparked, surprisingly, by a culinary grievance. Imagine being a student at Harvard, sitting down to your meal and finding the butter to be so unpalatable that you felt moved to protest. It may seem trivial to us today, but for those Harvard scholars, it was a matter of principle. The Great Butter Rebellion was more than just a complaint about bad butter. It served as a catalyst for student activism in the United States. The students' refusal to accept the subpar butter was a symbolic stand against the administration's disregard for their well-being and quality of life. This act of defiance, of voicing dissatisfaction and demanding better, set the stage for the countless student protests that would sweep across American universities in the centuries to come. From this seed of defiance, student activism grew, branching out into various fields and causes. It evolved from a protest over butter to movements advocating for civil rights, voicing opposition against wars, and demanding justice for marginalized communities. These protests weren't merely about the issues at hand. They were a testament to the power of the student body, a power that could challenge authority and demand change. The story of protests at American universities is a testament to the transformative power of dissent. It's a tale of how a group of young scholars dissatisfied with their butter could spark a tradition of student activism that would shape the course of American history. From butter to rights, the first waves of student protests were just the beginning. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into this fascinating journey through time. As we entered the mid-20th century, student protests became more politically charged and widespread. The 1960s and 1970s were a time of significant change and upheaval, not just in American society at large, but also on college campuses. Students were becoming more politically aware, and they used their voices and their actions to effect change. Perhaps no protest signifies this shift more than the free speech movement at UC Berkeley in 1964. The movement began when students gathered to protest a ban on on-campus political activities. The students demanded their right to free speech and academic freedom, challenging the university's authority. This protest was not just about free speech, though. It was a reflection of the growing discontent among students about the status quo. The free speech movement set a precedent for student activism, showing that students could and would fight for their rights and beliefs. Fast forward to 1970, and we see another, perhaps even more significant student protest. This time, it was at Kent State University, and the issue at hand was the Vietnam War. Thousands of students gathered to protest against the war, a war they felt was unjust and unnecessary. But this protest took a tragic turn when the National Guard was called in, and 4 students were killed. This event, now known as the Kent State Massacre, shocked the nation and galvanized even more protests against the Vietnam War across the country. These protests were not just about the issues at hand, though. They were about a shift in student activism. Students were no longer just protesting university policies or local issues. They were protesting national and even international issues, using their voices and their actions to try to effect change on a larger scale. These protests marked a significant shift towards more politically motivated student activism. They showed that students were not just passive recipients of education, but active participants in society. And they set the stage for the many student protests that would follow in the coming decades. In recent years, student protests have continued to shape the social and political landscape of American universities. As we delve into the present, we find protests that resonate with contemporary social issues, illuminating how the pulse of activism thrives on college campuses. Take, for instance, the Black Lives Matter demonstrations at the University of Missouri in 2015. In response to racial tensions on campus, students mobilized, demanding change. Their courage sparked a nationwide conversation about racial inequality in higher education. This wasn't a solitary event. but a part of a larger movement that swept across the country, echoing the cries for justice and equality. Then, in 2018, we saw another wave of student activism following the tragic Parkland shooting. Young voices, raw with grief and frustration, rose in unison against gun violence. Students from universities nationwide joined the March for Our Lives, advocating for stricter gun control laws. This was an eloquent testament to the power of youth, a testament to their ability to rally for change in the face of adversity. In these modern protests, we see a common thread: the use of social media as a tool for mobilization. Platforms like Twitter and Instagram have become digital megaphones, amplifying student voices to a global audience. They have transformed activism, enabling real-time communication, coordination, and engagement. Through these platforms, students can share their stories, rally support, and pressure institutions for change. These protests, while reflective of contemporary issues, are also part of a long tradition of student activism. They remind us that universities are not just places for academic learning, but also spaces for critical thinking and social engagement. They are breeding grounds for change, where young minds are awakened to the realities of the world and inspired to challenge the status quo. Today, student protests continue to be a powerful tool for change and social justice. They are a testament to the enduring spirit of activism, a spirit that refuses to be silenced, a spirit that continues to shape the future of American universities. So, what does this all mean for the history of protests at American universities? Well, tracing back from the Great Butter Rebellion to today's demonstrations, we see a vibrant tapestry of voices and causes. These displays of collective action are not mere footnotes in history. Rather, they are pivotal moments that have shaped the culture, politics, and very ethos of American universities. From civil rights to the anti-war movement, from climate change to racial justice, each wave of protests has left an indelible mark. They have challenged the status quo, sparked dialogues, and even led to policy changes. These protests are a testament to the power of student voices, a reflection of their courage to advocate for change. As we reflect on the history of protests at American universities, we see a legacy of students standing up for their beliefs, shaping their institutions, and making a difference in the world. Don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.